So, this is an introduction to lesson 1.3 of year 2 of the Good Project lesson plans. This particular lesson focuses on values and engagement. The lesson goal is that students will be able to re-identify and evaluate their personal values and the connection between values and feelings of engagement. So students will have spent quite a bit of time in year 1 talking about their values and doing the value sort. This is the opportunity to re-engage with all of those ideas. So here are the assessments, castle alignments, portfolio documentation. In this particular lesson is collecting or taking pictures of the sticky notes that they will be using. There is an optional dilemma here, which we'll get to. The resources are there's both a paper version of the value sort and there's a new online version of the value sort as well. You'll also need some sticky notes for the activity. So again, an optional refresher to perhaps revisit the idea of engagement, what it is, a feeling of meaning or connection to your work. So one possibility would be to suggest that students turn to one another and talk about when they feel engaged. So again, optional refresher, you know your students best. So the first activity is 10 minutes, asking students to think about what the word values means. Get them brainstorming a bit before you remind them that values are the things we believe are important to the way we live and do work. Provide them with an online or paper version of the value sort so that they can think about their values. If they have indeed done the value sort last year, as we hope most of them will, it's important to tell them that values evolve over time. And one of the things that we hope they will do is to continue to reflect, that importance of reflection, as we talked about just in the previous lesson, continue to reflect about their values because they will continue to evolve. And that's important. So they have about 10 minutes to complete the value sort. Second portion of this activity is to think about engagement. There are two options here. One is to use a video. Another is to model engagement yourself, to talk about the core values that have guided you in your life. And again, we've had a number of educators who have done this and they feel that it's very impactful. For some, you might not want to share that. Totally okay. So we offer the option of a video instead. This speed stories is the third activity here. It'll take 15 minutes. Hopefully you can, if you can't divide your students into groups of 4, feel free to tweak depending on the math of your particular classroom. But the speed sharing with 4 students is that they will have 2 minutes each. So if I'm working with another individual, it will take us a total of 4 minutes because we're each going to share a story about one time when one of your top values contributed to feelings of purpose or meaning or engagement. So they've just done the value sort. They've realized that curiosity is something that's incredibly important to them, and they're going to talk about a time in 2 minutes where curiosity was really important to how I was engaged. So I'm going to tell a story about that, and then I'm going to switch. And if there are 4 different people in a group, we will move around. It'll be 3 different pairings. So then the next activity is around, they stay in the same groups, and then we ask them to think about a value that is challenging to them. So something that's often in tension with being purposeful or being engaged. So for example, the value of patience. It could be one of their top 4 values. It might also be something that doesn't make sense to them. So I think really digging into something that is challenging for them will be interesting. So patience is difficult for me when I'm really engaged in something. I don't want to stop and pause and be patient. I want to move forward. So that's how I think about, patience being challenging, for example. Although maybe there's a little reality in that for me. I'm not always the most patient person, although I try. So we then ask them to create a poster or some sort of artistic representation of the 4 challenging values of the group. And then closing and exit activity is to write down top values and a challenging value they discussed on sticky notes and put them on either a physical or digital whiteboard so that everyone can see what everybody else thought about. Then you can pull out any themes or patterns, encourage your students to do so as well. Keep those notes and add them or take a picture and add them to the portfolio. Here are 2 different possible enrichments and a suggestion from one educator from our community of practice about how they made connections between this particular dilemma and students' own lives. So we always, whenever possible, include these fantastic suggestions from educators. So I would absolutely encourage you to open those accordions whenever you can.